Okay, guys. Hey, first of all, thank you so much for sticking around. I know it was a long day. How many talks have you heard? Like 10 or 12 talks? That's a lot. So I'm going to switch things up a little bit. And most people talked about business and how to start a business and how to start a business on the road and entrepreneurship. And I'm going to switch it up a little bit, and I'm going to talk about psychology. And you heard a lot of people talk about, all the speakers before me, that, when you start your own business, pretty often you have certain challenges. And you have to step out of your own comfort zone over and over and over again. And I will talk about how you can train yourself so you become better at this process. How you can train yourself to become better at the process of stepping outside your comfort zone. And more specifically, I will talk about fear and how you can become better at dealing with fear. Because let's face it, right? If you become better at dealing with fear, so many new things in life open up. And you also, all the principles I'm going to teach you, you can also apply them to your own business and leverage this in this area. But at the beginning, let's take a step back. And basically, what I do on a daily basis and how I earn my money is by doing things like this. And I encourage other people to do slightly uncomfortable or embarrassing things in public, like, for example, to lay down for 30 seconds in strange places. And here come some examples. This is in India. This is in Spain. This is Ghana. This is Morocco. This is Singapore. This is the Philippines. This is Italy. This is New York. This is in the gym. This is St. Paddy's Day. And this is one of my favorites. This is in the office, including a very, very confused coworker. So, obviously, there's a lot more behind it, what I do. And basically, what I do is I take evidence-based psychotherapy techniques, like, for example, acceptance and commitment therapy, or dialectical behavioral therapy, or cognitive behavioral therapy. And I take those therapy forms and turn them, as you just saw, into fun and playful programs, and thereby I do two things. The one big thing I do is I help people, to become more confident and to tackle very specific fears. But that's rather the agenda people have when they go to my website or when they approach me. However, the second thing that I do is, and personally I believe this is my hidden agenda when I work with people, and I believe this is the more important process, I show them or I teach them how they can train themselves to consistently even move beyond this area of comfort, even move beyond this area of confidence, and how they can train themselves to act despite fear. So not only how to overcome fear, no, how to consistently act despite fear. Because let's face it, right? There's so many things in life we could do, but pretty often, fear is holding us back, and we don't, start our business, don't work on our idea, don't quit our job, or, travel to a foreign country because fear is pretty often holding us back. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. And on a more abstract level, what I will talk about today is how you can make your values and your goals to the organizing force in your life instead of having your emotions as the organizing force in your life. And this sounds pretty abstract, right? So let me give you an example. So who of you has ever been in a situation where you really wanted to do something? I don't know, talk to another person or, start your own business, travel to a foreign country. You really wanted to do something, but then you got anxious, scared, or nervous. And because you were anxious or scared, you didn't do what you actually wanted to do. Ever experienced this? Raise your hand and say, yep. Okay, perfect. Now, this is an example for having your emotions organizing your behavior. You had a goal, you wanted to do something, but then your emotions determined what you did in the end. Now, probably, you also experienced the opposite, right? So,
can I take a picture with you?
Wow. Now, the other example is having your goals organizing your behavior, even though your emotions, like fear, might say something else. And now every time, probably all done this, right? Like this gentleman right here. So probably you've done it once in your life that you had a certain goal, you had a certain value, you acted upon it even though you were scared and nervous. And most of the time when we do this, when we act despite fear, most of the time we're happy or we're proud of ourselves. And today I will show you how to do this more consistently in all different areas of your life. And similar to how you can work with your body in the gym, in the same way you can work with your mind and thereby train yourself to, withstand psychological discomfort on a more regular basis. And all these kind of things can help you. Start traveling to foreign countries, working on your idea, starting a business, or going out and putting yourself out there, putting your ideas out there, and for example, connecting with like-minded people. And I personally first got into this by basically merging two aspects of my own life. So on the one hand, since I'm 16, 17, I'm hugely obsessed with psychology and psychotherapy. In the beginning, I was reading all those books, and I often invited classmates home over and tried all those psychotherapy techniques on them, and then record those sessions, send them to my dad who's a therapist, and he would give me feedback on my process, and step by step, develop skill in this area. Then I was 19, finished high school, and then I traveled around Europe and literally learned from some of the best therapists in the world. And then, developed more and more skill in this area. However, during this whole time, a lot of my own behavior, a lot of my own life in general, was governed by fear. And when I was younger, I didn't even realize it was fear that was holding me back. For me, it was simply the case that there was just some things I just couldn't do. Going to party alone where I didn't know anybody, just couldn't do it. Being around cooler people, or that I viewed as cooler, and speaking up, expressing my opinion, I just couldn't do it. Even like simple things like being on the bus and talking on the phone while everybody else was quiet, I just couldn't do it because I cared so much what other people think about me. And then, I got older, and, around, I was 21, I guess, I became more and more self-aware, and I figured out, basically, I could do all those things, and in the end, it's just fear that is holding me back. And then what I did was, I had this fear here, this problem, so to speak, and then I leveraged basically all my education and therapy to scratch my own itch, to solve my own problem. And then I kind of stumbled upon a solution, and this solution helped me, on the one hand, yes, to overcome a lot of anxieties and fear, but more importantly, I became so familiar with fear that even though I still have certain anxieties and nervousnesses, but they don't hold me back anymore from doing the things I really want to do. And then, the solution worked for me, tried it on my clients, tried it on my friends, worked for them, then I put it up online, and then I started an online business around it called Comfort Zone Crusher, and up to this point, we have tens of thousands of people from all over the world to overcome their fears, become more confident, and become better at dealing with fear. And now, the way behind it, or, so to speak, like the gym for the mind that we use in this context are comfort zone challenges. And this was just a perfect example of a comfort zone challenge. And a comfort zone challenge is basically that you consciously put yourself in a situation that makes you nervous or insecure, or you get kind of anxious. And by doing this over and over again, you become better at this process. And funny enough, I didn't find this in the psychological literature. Instead, I stumbled upon this in Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Workweek. And then I looked, hey, what does have like evidence-based psychotherapy say on this topic? And they also had a solution to overcome fears, and this is called exposure therapy. And exposure therapy is a very, very elaborated concept since like 60 or 70 years. And they also have an explanation why this whole thing works, why you can face your fears and thereby overcome them, and why you can become better at facing fears in general. And now I want to give you like a little peek, so to say, behind your own psychology and show you how you can become more confident, and basically what's the process that helps you to become better at dealing with fears. And basically, in order to understand this, there are two big processes. Number one is desensitization. And this basically explains how you can become more confident. The second process is expanding your behavioral repertoire, and I'm going to talk about this in a second. Now, in order to understand this, first of all, you need to understand that fear is nothing else than anticipated pain. So let's say you go into a social situation and you start to get nervous or anxious. It's most of the time because you anticipate a certain pain. For example, rejection, which is emotional pain. The second thing you need to understand about fear is one of the strongest behavioral motivators. And it motivates you to avoid this anticipated pain at all costs. Now let's say you enter a social situation, and on the x-axis we have time, y-axis we have fear. Let's say you enter the social situation, and at first, you're kind of calm, you're not nervous, and then you start to get anxious and more anxious and more anxious. And at one point, this behavioral motivating force becomes so strong that it drives you towards either escape or avoid the situation. And this could be, for example, if you're in a social situation, what do most people do? when they get kind of like uncomfortable, they start to take out their phone and check their email for the 30th time in a row, right? And then what happens is, it does work. The anxiety goes away, anxiety goes away. However, the problem with this is, the next time you go in this situation again, the fear shows up again because your mind tells yourself, oh yeah, nothing bad happened in this situation, but only because we used our escape and avoidance strategy like looking at our phone. And now how desensitization works is the following. Once again, you go in the situation, anxiety goes higher and higher, and now there's this point where your entire body tells you, dude, just get out your phone, just break eye contact, just look at your phone and just go through your email because you don't want to withstand this psychological discomfort. But instead, you surrender to the fear basically, you open up, and you stay in the situation. And what happens then is, at one point, you feel a peak. And in this moment, you probably experience one out of two things. Either you notice, let's say, in a social situation, you're afraid of rejection, you talk to the first person, you get kind of anxious, nervous, you start talking to the second person, you get even more anxious or nervous, you still don't get rejected. You talk to the third person, you're even more anxious and nervous, you still don't get rejected, and then your mind starts to think, oh, maybe, there's nothing like rejection, maybe I don't get rejected, and your fear starts to decrease. Or what might also happen is, you start talking to the first person, and the first person rejects you. However, you notice, I'm still alive, and it was not as bad as I expected. And what happens from then on is, your fear starts to decrease. And now you have a reference experience for going in this situation, and there's no pain waiting for you. So the next time you go in this situation, you're a lot more calmer, and there's a lot less anxiety. And probably, most of you know this from traveling, right? The first time you travel, especially alone, you have all these kind of anxieties and fears. Oh, what if I don't find friends on the road? What if I, can't communicate the language and I get lost? What if the cab driver rips me off? All this kind of fears. And then you go in the situation and you figure out, oh, it's pretty easy to make friends on the road. Or, oh yeah, even if I don't speak the language, I can still get around. So the fear or the pain that you anticipated does not actually happen. Or on the other hand, the cab driver rips you off and he charges you $5 too much, and you notice, oh wow, I was not as uncomfortable as I expected. And now this process explains how you can become more comfortable in the world in general, and how can you become more confident. And that's the process most people look for, all right? And now there's a second process happening, and I believe this is like the really important process. And the second process is called expanding your behavioral repertoire. Now, this line is a metaphor for your behavioral spectrum. So let's say you're at a party, and on your behavioral spectrum, there are a lot of different things you could do. For example, you could talk to people, right? Or you could joke around. Or when you talk to a person, you're able to hold eye contact. And you can make the conscious decision, do you want to hold eye contact or not? However, as soon as fear starts to kick in, usually what happens is your behavioral repertoire shrinks, and all those things, you can't really do them anymore. It's hard to hold eye contact. And your behavioral repertoire shrinks to only those actions that are in service of escape and avoidance. And now what you can practice with comfort zone challenges, and this is why it's like the gym for the mind, you're in this situation, you talk to a person, and you kind of get nervous or anxious, you stop want to hold eye contact, and then instead of giving into this escape and avoidance, you open up once again, you hold the eye contact. And what happens is, you add holding eye contact to your behavioral spectrum in the face of fear. And then step by step, you can add more and more options to your behavioral spectrum while you're being afraid. And the next time you go to a social event, you can do, for example, that was a big one for me back in the days. You can, be anxious, nervous, your entire body tells you, man, just shut the fuck up, don't say anything. And then you can still accept this fear, go ahead, and still express your opinion. And thereby, you expand your behavioral repertoire, and you expand the things that you can do in the face of fear. And I think this is the important process simply for this reason, because, if we would always wait until we finally overcome our fears before we start doing things, we would never get around doing anything. Because most new things, like starting a business or traveling or even meeting new people, often includes a certain level of anxiety or nervousness. And now, all this was like on a very conceptual level, so to speak. And now I want to give you like a little story of my first comfort zone challenge. And even though it's like 2 years ago now, it still feels like yesterday because it was like so, let's say, emotional, significant. And it was a Thursday, and I was at my university in Vienna, and I was sitting in the library, and I was flicking through my books, and at this point I decided, hey, I will do my first comfort zone challenge. a couple of days before, I read Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Workweek, and I picked the challenge of lying down the street for 30 seconds. And I made the decision, hey, I will do my first comfort zone challenge. And what did I say? Because it's uncomfortable, I will do it tomorrow. So I decided we'll do tomorrow. A couple of hours later, I left the library, I went to my train, and for those of you who are familiar with Vienna, it was Vienna Schottentor, very busy, 5 o'clock, ton of people running around, and I was standing there waiting for my train. And while I was standing there and waiting until my train finally arrived, I was thinking to myself, oh shit, a lot of people here, and I'm gonna lay down here on the floor tomorrow. Whew. And then I had this crazy thought of, hey, why not do it today? And in the moment I had the thought, why not do it today, two things happened. On the one hand, my body flushed with fear, my heart started to pound like mad, my knees were getting weak. And on the other hand, poof, 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 all those really, really good excuses popped up, like, oh yeah, the floor is dirty, the train is waiting for you, your friend is waiting at home, you not got your best shirt on, you shouldn't want to make it dirty, you have your backpack, it looks kind of weird if you lay on the floor and you have your backpack on the same side. So I was standing there in between, on the one hand, my fear and all my excuses. So what did I say? Fuck it, I'm not going to do it. And I remember I took the first step towards the train, and in this moment I had this epiphany. And this moment I started to understand something. I heard this concept before, but now I really understood it on a deeper level. And I realized this fear, and those excuses will always be there, no matter it's today or tomorrow or next week. So I decided, hey, doesn't matter if I wait or not, I can do it right now. So I turned around, put down my backpack, and guys, I was terrified in this moment. My heart was pounding. I thought I was going to die, and couldn't contain this fear, so to speak. But I turned around and then lay down. And as soon as my back hit the floor, I noticed two things. And the first thing that I noticed was, there were some people look at me like I'm fucking weird. I remember there was even one mother with a kid, and I was laying on the floor, and it was kind of like interesting. So the kid wanted to walk towards me. The mom pulled her away, and I heard her saying, "Don't walk next to this weird man." However, I was not as uncomfortable as I expected. Now, the second thing that I noticed was most people didn't even care. Most people didn't even look at me. They didn't even recognize me. And with every second, I got calmer and calmer because I noticed I expected it to be a lot worse than it actually was. And step by step, I got calmer and calmer. And 30 seconds later, I got up, had a big smile on my face, and the next train came, and I got on the train, and I went home. And after this, in the meantime, I did hundreds of challenges and, saw thousands of other people go through the same process. And now I want to give you 5, strategies how you can go through this. For those of you who decide to do it, how you can go through this. And basically, the 5 steps I'm going to show you, you can apply this to everything or to any situation where you tend to get anxious or nervous. And those strategies can help you to move through it faster or more efficiently. And the first step, so to speak, or the first phase, whenever you do something scary, is always a procrastination phase. For me back then, what was it? Oh yeah, I'm going to do a challenge. I'm going to do it tomorrow. And the reason for this is because, when we do something scary or something new, we never feel prepared. So we think, oh yeah, we should wait until we finally feel prepared. But actually, it's due to the nature of the action itself that we don't feel prepared, and actually we will never feel prepared. And the antidote against this is implementing the mindset of done is better than perfect. Rather do it right fucking now instead of wait until one day you will feel prepared, because you never will. So for those of you who plan doing comfort zone challenges, that was a great example. If you plan on doing this, if you want to train your mind, so to speak, do it right now. Do it right after this talk, for example. And for me, I realized, oh yeah, my fear and excuse will always be there, and this brought me closer to the edge. And the next step is emotions and thoughts. Because as soon as you make the decision to do something scary, and the closer you get to the moment, what will happen? 2 things. You will start to get anxious, and your emotions will pop up. And number 2, you will have all the thoughts like, I shouldn't do it, it's stupid to do it, or I can't do it. You have all those excuses why you shouldn't do it at all. And the way how to combat this is, number 1, for the emotions, you need to understand that human emotions, and Paul Ekman wrote about this extensively, human emotions basically only last 90 to 120 seconds. So the chemical reactions of emotions, they come and they go. However, what happens, and this is the reason why we experience emotions for a longer period of time, we experience the first anxiety, and then it peaks, and we start to think, oh shit. And then you think, oh shit, we can't handle it, we can't take it. And if you think like this, what happens? Another spike of emotions. And then you think, oh my God, it gets even stronger, I can't handle this either. And then another spike, and another spike, and another spike. And how to combat this is simply, instead of judging your emotions, simply describing what's going on in your body. And this is a lot of like acceptance commitment therapy. They do this extensively. And so simply what you do is, oh, interesting, my heart is pounding really fast. Oh, I got this weird feeling in my tummy. Oh, my knees are getting weak. And simply start to relate like this to your emotions. And the goal is not to get rid of your emotions, but instead the goal is to gain perspective and don't over-identify with your emotions. Same with thoughts. With thoughts is the same thing. Instead of, completely falling into believing your thoughts, instead mentally take a step back. And you can do this by simply adding the prefix, I have the thought of, and then you add your whatever thought you have. For example, oh, I have the thought of, I can do it. And now all those things bring you closer and closer to the leap of faith. Because, whenever you do something scary, every single time, at one point, there's a single moment, it's like you're standing at the edge of the cliff, and this one single moment, we have to take this leap of faith. And we all know this, right? With the swimming pool, at the diving board, and we already can see ourselves jump, and it takes this one single moment to leap over the edge. And there are a ton of different strategies, and a bit more complex, but the easiest strategy to get over this edge and to take this leap is to simply count 3, 2, 1, go. And this will often push you over the edge. And then with this, you're in the moment, you're in the situation, and what this means is go all in. With go all in, I mean pick a focus in the external world and completely focus outward. Because if you focus on yourself, or if folks, for example, if I would do the lay down challenge and we would just focus on myself, what my mind would tell me is afterwards, my mind would tell me, oh yeah, nothing bad happened because you just focused on yourself. Instead, look the people in the eye. Or if you're anxious in social situation, fully focus outward, pick a focus in the outside world, like your conversation partner, for example, and fully focus outward. And similar to meditation, how you do this is you pick a focus, and yes, your mind will drift all the time, your mind will go to anxiety, your mind will go to all your excuses and all your thoughts, and always gently bring your attention back to the focus you picked. And then, after the situation is over, you can enjoy the relief that comes from doing a comfort zone challenge or doing something that scares you. And that's it, basically. And now comes my favorite part of this whole talk, because now it's your turn for your first comfort zone challenge. And the comfort zone challenge, you can choose, I'm going to give you a chance to choose. There are 2 different challenges. And the first challenge is you stand up, and there's a reason why I picked those things. I'm going to explain in a second. The first challenge is don't do it now, just wait a second. I look at some people, they're like, okay, let's go. Okay, you stand up, you stretch your arms, and either yell, I'm the king of the world, or queen of the world, respectively. Or the other thing is, you stretch your arms, and as I did at the beginning, hoo, 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 howl like a wolf. And the reason why I picked those 2 things is, number 1, the stretching the arm things is open up. It's like a metaphor for opening up to anxiety, opening up to your feelings. And also, since we're little kids, we're always told, oh yeah, sit still in school. If you're on the bus, don't bump into other people. Now we can practice this to open up. And think about being loud and yelling something loud, even something ridiculous, I'm the king of the world. Because, also, since we're little kids, we're always told, don't wake up your little sister, be quiet in school, don't talk too loud at the bus, and all those kind of different things. And now we can tackle this. But before they do this, I really want you to feel the anxiety a little bit before. So if you have anything on your lap right now, put it down and place your hands, put your feet straight on the floor, place your hands on your lap. You can leave your eyes open or close your eyes for a second. And then just for 1 second, just focus inward. And just go through your own body. Just notice how your heart is beating, how your breath is going in and out, and how you feel at this moment. Maybe you have some thoughts coming up like, oh shit, or like, oh yeah, I'm going to do it, or like, oh, this is ridiculous, why should I do it? All those different thoughts. And simply take a step back and notice how you feel. Simply describe what's going on in your body and notice all the thoughts that you have in the moment, and take a step back and think to yourself, oh, I'm having the thought of, and then mention the thought to yourself. And now rate your level of comfort on a scale from 0 to 10, where 10 is like the most comfortable, you care not at all, you're super happy. And now have this number in your mind, and with this, open your eyes again. And now, did everybody understand what the challenge entails? Stand up, stretch your arms, yell, I'm the king of the world, or yell, hoo, 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 hoo. And for those of you who are very brave, obviously do both. So, has everybody understand the challenge? Raise your hand and say, yep, if you did. Yep. Okay, if somebody next to you didn't raise his hand, explain it to him. Okay, and now, obviously, I'm gonna count down from 3 to 1, and then it's your chance to do your first challenge, okay? So, 3, 2, 1, and go! Okay, keep standing. Okay, keep standing. Who of you is proud and happy that you did it? Raise your hand and say, yep. Okay, perfect. One last thing. Most people start to get into this whole thing of expanding their comfort zone and tackling their fears because they have this illusion or their hope, oh yeah, I do all those kind of things, I become more confident, and then finally, I will be comfortable in the world. And they think as soon as they're comfortable in the world, then they will finally be happy. And there's this big misconception where a lot of people confuse comfort for happiness. Because in the end, and there's a ton of studies that support this, life satisfaction does not come from like a comfortable, normal life, but instead from a most engaged life possible. And we heard this a couple of times this day, right? This means going all in, going out, and doing all those things in your life that you want to do, even though you're scared, even though you're nervous, and opening up to those negative feelings, so to speak, and still go ahead and do all the things. And the best way to train this is by, for example, doing comfort zone challenges, or simply implementing one mindset that Eleanor Roosevelt captured very beautifully. And I'm going to say this quote in a second, and this is going to be the end of the talk. And Eleanor Roosevelt once famously said, and that's a quote that I always try to live by, and that can get you closer to this most and engaged and full life. And she once famously said, do one thing every day that scares you. Thank you.